At the time of this recording, I'm just back from my mother-in-law's funeral. It's kind of a strange term, isn't it? Mother-in-law. The laws of marriage have made us related. She's no longer just my wife's mother. She's, in a way, my mother too. She's the grandmother to my children. So our word of the week this week is father-in-law and mother-in-law. Let's take a look at them. Ho pentheros is father-in-law and he penthera is mother-in-law. So pentheros is masculine, penthera is feminine. It's the same word, it's just masculine when referring to the male and feminine when referring to the female. If you look at these words, pentheros and penthera, they have neither the words mother nor father in them, nor the word for law. So our idea of a mother-in-law or a father-in-law is not etymologically rooted in this Greek word pentheros or penthera. This comes from a proto-Indo-European root, okay? Say that 5 times fast. A proto-Indo-European root. The verb root means to tie, like to tie a knot in something or to fasten something to something else. And the noun root is bond, like things that are stuck together, a bond. So what does that tell us? It doesn't have mother or father in it, but the male and the female are, when it's in the masculine, ho pentheros, the man to which you are tied, he penthera, the woman to which you are tied. So this is someone to whom you are bonded. Your connection to your biological family occurs before you are born, right? So if we think about conception, each parent is a genetic contributor of 50% of your genome. The 2 cells meet. They each contribute half of the genome. A new helix is formed, and that's the blueprint by which you are built from, literally from 2 cells upward through that division process, etc. So you are inextricably related to your mother and your father. But when it comes to your in-laws, an event takes place that ties you to them. So when my wife and I decided to get married, that tied me to her mother and to her father and vice versa, her to mine. Let's take a quick look at father-in-law, because I'm focusing today on mother-in-law. Let's take a quick look at father-in-law in John 18, verse 13. This is from the ESV with the Koine supplied. This is referring to Jesus being brought to the high priest. First, they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law, pentheros, of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. So when they brought Jesus to the high priest, they went to the older, more well-known guy first, his father-in-law, who likely was previously a high priest. And then they bring him to Caiaphas. But let's move on to mother-in-law in Matthew chapter 8, verses 14 and 15. Again from the ESV. And when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and began to serve him. So let's take a look at it in Greek. Kailthon ho Jesus estein oikion petru. So notice it's estein oikion. It's in the feminine. It's not oikon, it's not oikos, it's oikia. So the feminine version of this word always means the home, where oikos could just mean a house. It could just mean a structure. It could mean a house that Peter owns or controls but doesn't live in. But one of the things that Matthew tells us is that they went not to Peter's house, but to Peter's home. And who lives in Peter's home with him? Not just his own wife, but his wife's mother. His mother-in-law lives in the house with him. And after entering, Jesus saw, we're going to get the word saw in the second half. So we have this adverbial participle showing a temporal relationship between elthon, entering, coming in, and seeing, Aden, he saw. So you can't see what's in the house until after you enter the house, right? Unless you're peeking through a window. So what we're told is Jesus, after entering, saw Peter's mother-in-law, and then we'll get the rest of it. Aden tein pantheron autu, and he saw his mother-in-law, Peter's mother-in-law, beblemenein kai pure susan. So she was laying sick with a fever. The word for fever, the participle for fever, is related to fire. She was there burning. He saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. So Peter's wife's mom lives with them. She's probably widowed, or she probably wouldn't live with them. She's cared for and supported by them. She's tied together, right? Remember that, what did we say it was? A proto-Indo-European root. She's tied together with Peter. She's genetically connected to her own daughter, but she's been tied together with Peter through marriage. She's not just related to Peter's wife. She's related to Peter now and lives in Peter's home with him. Let's go on and take a look at a woman with her mother-in-law in Matthew 10, verse 35. And here we get a common Greek word that is translated by the ESV in the only place where it gets translated this way. And I'll point it out when we get to it. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And mother-in-law here is tes pantheros autes. But let's take a look here in Greek. Kai numphane kata tes pantheres autes. And a bride, a daughter-in-law, here in this case even perhaps a maiden, an unmarried woman, against her mother-in-law. Well, how can you have a mother-in-law if you're an unmarried woman? Notice it doesn't have the word for wife. It doesn't have just woman, gune or gunaika. It has a nymph, right? Nymphe. It has the bride that is a bride from the time she gets engaged through the consummation of the marriage. So this is the bride before the wedding, or the bride right up to the point of or through the wedding, but before she is a married woman who has consummated her marriage with her husband. So why does this matter? Because even in the case of an espoused young woman, once the ketubah is formed, right, once the terms of the marriage contract are settled, is now tied to the groom's family. And when Jesus wants to talk about separation, separating strong familial bonds, he talks about a man and his father, a woman and her mother, right, a son and a father, a daughter and a mother, and even he includes a nymphe, a bride with her mother-in-law, a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law. In Jesus' example, is just as strong a familial connection as father and son and mother and daughter. Amazing, isn't it? How strong that tie is said to be in the New Testament version. Now, if anybody knows me knows that I love jokes. And there are great mother-in-law jokes out there. There are some magnificent mother-in-law jokes, and they virtually all come at the expense of the mother-in-law. For me, I was deprived of that. I have no good mother-in-law jokes. The reason is my mother-in-law was awesome. I have no complaints. I have no room to crack a joke at her expense. Hey Panthera Mu, my mother-in-law, was wonderful, and I was privileged to have been tied to her through marriage to her daughter. Hey Panthera, mother-in-law, Ho Pantheros, father-in-law, from the proto-Indo-European root to tie together, to bond. That's our word of the week. I hope that yours, if you have a mother-in-law, I hope that yours is as much of a gift to you as mine was to me. And until next time, Charis Kairene Humin, grace and peace to you.